Good afternoon, everybody. It is August 5th. You are watching NuPath Live. My name is Dan Harrison. I am your host. We have Dan Lannon joining us in a few minutes to talk about some changes that are going to be happening here at NuPath regarding testing. This is related to the vaccine, which it's no surprise we're talking about that today since it's been so much in the news lately, and specifically the Delta strain, that variant that has been taking our nation by storm yet again, and the number of unvaccinated people that are part of our population that many blame these variants for the fact that they're continuing. But before we get into it, I wanted to just take a pause and acknowledge some very sad news that we have faced as a NuPath family, and that is the passing of Nancy Gray. Nancy worked for NuPath for many, many, many years, was a fixture here. I called her NuPath royalty. In a note that I left at the Lynch Cantillan online guest book, or where people could express their sadness. And there is going to be a wake tonight from 4 to 7 at Lynch Cantillan. If you're watching this and want to go pay your respects. I knew Nancy from the day I began working at NuPath, and there was a story that many people have probably heard, and it goes back to one of the first things I was doing was opening up our Demi Way program. I don't even think we don't even have that program anymore. But at the time, I was working with a woman whose sister was going to be placed there, and that sister, the woman's name was Anna, that was in the program, and the sister Mary said that she always knew when Nancy was working because her sister Anna came home with her glasses clean. And so many years later, I did something sort of silly for Nancy, and it remained this sort of this tale that I told several times because early on I had to give an award to Nancy, and I was lucky to have known that detail because I was so new, and so I called it the Legend of Anna's Sparkling Spectacles, and I'm just going to read a couple of little excerpts from it. It said, and that no longer anxious CEO stood before the room of expectant onlookers. I called Nancy up by her name. I have to get my glasses on. I can't see. And he recounted to all assembled the tales of Nancy's fair deeds and compassionate treatment and charity to all. But most importantly, the COO bestowed the first telling of the legend of Anna's sparkling spectacles, and how Anna's sister, a benevolent soothsayer, knew of Nancy's influence and kind treatment of her sibling just by inspecting Anna's glasses when she returned home at the end of each day. And then the last paragraph. The team of onlookers cheered as one upon hearing of Nancy's fine acts and rejoiced at her very good fortune. The COO smiled and thought to himself, this is a special employee indeed, and I feel certain I shall never forget this moment, and that I shall seek always to protect her and honor her service for as long as I shall live. Right to the end, when Nancy, before she left us and went on to retirement and golfing and Maine and all the other things that she enjoyed, Nancy and I shared a special kind of a bond that was really forged in those early days and lasted the nearly 2 decades that we worked together. Our heart goes out to her family, her children, and all of the people that loved her, the people in her community, and really sad by this loss. Our thoughts and prayers will be with her family, and to all of the staff and the clients served at the Martin Center that probably still miss her from when she left. But sad time for one of our own. Okay, now we're going to change gears. Well, it's still sad times in a way because we are still being stalked, hunted, harassed by COVID-19. And in spite of the progress that we've been making with the vaccines, we are not where we need to be. I'm not going to get into depth because I know people don't like data, but there is a wide spread of success that different states have had. And interestingly, Massachusetts is at 64% people getting both the first and second dose. I think it's like 77% maybe of people have gotten the first. And we rank second in all of the nation for vaccines, which is pretty incredible. Vermont is ahead of us, and we've got way more people, so it is a much bigger deal. So what does it look like at NuPath? And we're going to be drilling into this a lot more carefully. We are now at a 64. Actually, I can't read that. It's too small. But let's start at the top. So vaccine status at NuPath. We have 365 active employees. That shows how many people were down because we've been much higher than that, but that doesn't include relief and people that are on FMLA or for some reason not currently working in programs. Of those 365, 232 people have been vaccinated, leaving 133 unvaccinated. And so that puts us at a 63.5% vaccination rate, which is below what it is for Massachusetts. Not by much, but still. And it should be higher than that. There is just no reason. And we're gonna have Dan come on to talk to us about this because of this, and because of the variant that is now so much more contagious and so much more deadly and hospitalizing so many more people, we're really having to make some adjustments, and some of those things are things we're going to be doing ourselves. Some of the things are things that we will have no choice but to do, and some of the things we don't really know yet because they're happening as we speak. So Daniel, we will have you join us, and then we will talk to you and see if you've got anything to. There you are, Mr. Lannon. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dan. How are you? Good to see you.
We haven't been on for a while. We missed you.
Oh, I don't know if yeah.
Have you been on vacation for weeks and weeks at a time, or?
It was. I just got back from my 3-month hiatus that I took took across the city of Newbury. So.
Yeah, you'll get a 3-month hiatus, but I get a 3-month hiatus. How about that?
Well, before we get into this, because I know there's a lot to cover, that was a nice little tribute you did for Nancy Gray, and I know like many people around NuPath, you can't even just say the Martin Center anymore because Nancy really, worked at so many different. She worked here in the main building at New Boston Street. She did the residential services and independent supports, and so she certainly cared, and she certainly did her best to always try to take care of the individuals and put their needs first, and even when she retired a couple of years ago and then ended up going back to work, part-time, she was just someone who just always, tried to take care of the people that couldn't take care of themselves. And so she will be missed.
Yeah, she will. She was, what's the expression? Well-behaved women rarely make history. She tended to be outspoken. She was very frank. She would speak up if there was a problem, an issue, and she was just a staunch advocate for the people in her care. I really always appreciated that about her. She had a great sense of humor, but I mean, I know that from time to time, she, if she was complaining about something that you couldn't fix right away or you couldn't do anything about, it was sometimes frustrating, but she generally almost always had the clients like at the forefront when she was advocating for them. She'll be missed. I feel bad for her family.
They were certainly caught off guard. I know that she was actually vacationing up in Maine during the summer, which she usually does. She's been doing every summer, and so certainly there were no warning signs, and so it's just so sad. So
All right. Well, a lot of sadness, actually, if this is a good segue, the country, because we haven't, I don't think it's seen the surge that a lot of the southern states have seen, and that is for the Delta variant that is sweeping the nation, the world, really. The number of young people that are ending up hospitalized on ventilators and dying. In fact, I was hearing there's now groups of people that are out advocating, hey, if you're somebody that has not gotten the vaccine, for whatever reason you're choosing, then you better have your house in order. Make sure you have a will. Make sure you know what's going to happen to your children should you die, and get your affairs in order, because the people that are contracting this virus that we hear about and read about and see, these are many young people, with young families, that are being affected, and that's one of the main differences from before. So Dan, how do you want? We were talking earlier about how we wanted to use this time. We knew we wanted to talk about the vaccine, and we at NuPath are going to begin paying much more attention to it. I thought that there were this group of hesitant people out there, but once they got to see that the rest of us had taken it, and we weren't, developing any serious issues and serious problems, and the more that people across the country and the world was taking it, that they would finally decide, hey, you know what? This is a vaccine that has been tested more than probably all the rest of vaccines on Earth combined, just due to the sheer number, millions and millions of people that have taken it so far around the world. Because we know that it's people that get set in one particular way of thinking. It's very difficult to change their minds. At least I don't know of any way to do that. So I think we just sort of thought it will happen as it happens, and things seem to be going along just fine. And then this variant isn't what we hadn't counted on that, and this is what they tell us. The experts tell us that the more unvaccinated people there are in a population, the more likelihood there is that these strains will evolve, because viruses are constantly evolving and trying to make themselves more deadly and more prolific. And that's just what's happened here. Who knows what future strains will be like? It could be even worse. And so that's why we're decided to look at where we actually are for vaccinated rate, and we're going to be breaking that down by program. We're going to look at it by gender. We're going to be trying to understand the situation better, and we're exploring a number of options, including making vaccines mandatory, which should come as no surprise for people, because that is what we're hearing more and more about across the nation, and even here in Massachusetts. There's been another number of hospitals, institutions, universities that have already done that related to this. What are your thoughts, Dan?
Well, I guess unfortunately, I think we're in a very similar situation to where we first were back on, I think it was March 13th of 20, where we needed to make a decision to close programs and be proactive, because we felt it got to a point to where we saw the real inherent risk. And even as the Delta variant grew, and people started talking about it more, I think I was in a little denial of this happening. I think it was probably just out of sheer exhaustion from what we've been through and the staff have been through over the last year and a half, that I was just thinking, like, no, this isn't going to happen. This is just, this is just hype. And unfortunately, it's not hype. It is happening. And I think we're at a point where we need to be proactive and make some decisions once again. And so, you and I share a similar philosophy that I think the vaccination is the best thing to help, defend yourself against this virus. But whether we're all adults, or many of us are adults, and we can't convince people of things that they don't want to do. But I think what we have to take into account, and what we are taking into account, is who we're here to protect. And so for that reason, we're here to protect the individuals, and those are the services we provide. And we can't do that if we are not operating we are doing things that might put them at risk. And so I think from this point forward, we talked last night, we are going to institute weekly testing for those staff that remain, that percentage that remains unvaccinated, that starting next week, they will have to get weekly COVID tests. At this point it was monthly. The state gave us some flexibility to increase that, and in some guidance yesterday talked about even further changes coming, maybe the next week for even us staff that are vaccinated. But as for us, NuPath as a whole, anyone not vaccinated, we're going to start next week, having them test weekly. And I know many people received calls this week from HR or HR representatives here at NuPath, just trying to make sure that we had the most up-to-date status of your vaccination, so that next week you will get a notification that you need to come get tested and stuff. So I know we did some work this week to prepare us for next week, so that we can institute this as soon as possible. And I think that's the next best step we can take right now. We can't overreact to maybe some things happening other places, but we can be aware of the governor coming out this week talking about congregate care settings, all nursing homes and assisted living homes. By October, all staff will have to be vaccinated to work at those homes. And so there are people making pretty firm, strong stances of things that's going to be the expectation, and I think that's what we're working towards, to protect the individuals.
And across our industry, Dan, even though I don't believe any human service organizations like NuPath have made the decision that they're going to be full mandatory, many organizations have said that all new staff coming on board must be vaccinated. And we have adopted that policy as well. Effective immediately, any new staff coming in will have to be. The fear is that at this time, during this labor workforce crisis that we've been talking about, it's problematic, because if there's somebody that really strongly does not want to have the vaccine for whatever reason, and they feel that their only choice is to quit or to get the vaccine, that we don't want to lose the precious staff that we have, and having them leave. But at the end of the day, we have got to make decisions that are in the best interest for the health and the safety and the wellness of the employees that are here, that are vaccinated, and all of the people that we serve. What's so disappointing to me, and I just feel like my spirit's just been crushed by this, because we went through that period where we had the vaccine, and then we started to reopen, and we're getting people back, and our programs are filling up. And now, because there's so many people that refuse to get the vaccine, the strain is circulating through, and so we're suddenly at this moment where all of this effort to back to better, we're going to reclaim our world, and big plans for an October event. All of that stuff is going to be like a wet blanket thrown on top of it, just as we were starting to reemerge and rediscover that kind of NuPath spirit. And I don't think people, this sense of doing the right thing for your fellow man, for your fellow person, for something bigger than yourself, whether that be for your country or that just, it doesn't seem to exist the way it once did, at least for some people. They don't feel a sense of responsibility to the greater collective in the way that others do, because this is something that we all need to do in order to reemerge into this, into some sort of post-pandemic reality. And as long as there's this group of people that for whatever reason they've decided not to get vaccinated, this is going to be something that we have to live with as a population.
I agree with you. That's just so discouraging, and that's part of the exhaustion, that plays into the exhaustion I think that many staff are feeling, and family members and guardians that I've talked to over the last week. But I think the one thing that we do know, and we know this because of science, and we know this because there is data on it, is that if you do get the vaccination, you still could test positive, but your symptoms will be dramatically worse. There are less people dying. There are less people being hospitalized that have been tested positive. And so maybe we're not ready.
If you have the vaccine.
If you have the vaccination.
Yeah. So I don't think virtually hardly anybody is, maybe a few maybe that have, but it's like 99.99% effective at keeping you out of the hospital and keeping you from death.
But I think so that's the only thing left that I'm holding on to that is not discouraging of all those other things that you
Yeah.
mentioned, all those other wet blankets is because we know, right, that if you receive the vaccination, your chances of getting real sick are less, your chance of hospitalization, certainly all of those things. And I think, we have to react and move forward with that information. And so that's what we got to do. We will do steps and measures to protect ourselves that, that DDS tells us to, or that Mass Health tells us to help protect people if they believe that is the most, the most effective way to do that. And try to continue to educate those people who haven't been vaccinated on the benefit of it, because your synopsis of you better have your affairs in order, and you better early on in the pandemic, people thought certain groups were overreacting, right? That we closing things was an overreaction. All of these things, we're basing decisions based on data, and we're moving, and we're basing decisions on the medical proof, and so that therefore those 63%, 63.7, I think you said it was, that has the vaccination, and in those staff that choose not to at this time, I think that they will start to learn more and more the risks that they're putting themselves at, and we can try to educate them and help them along to try to get to a decision to try to protect themselves more. But we got to just focus on protecting the individuals and the people we serve, and we have to celebrate those who have received the vaccination that have protected themselves, because those are the people that are going to be that we're going to probably rely on once again to try to continue business as usual and continue services for the people we serve.
Dan, I was reminded, Greg was actually saying something to me about this, that during the Revolutionary War, George Washington had to make the difficult decision that he was going to mandate that all of the troops, the militia that were fighting for our independence, would receive the smallpox vaccine. Now, I guarantee you, it was nothing like it is to get the COVID-19 shot with a sterile syringe. In those days, they were like scraping like boils and pus of this, the infection from the smallpox, and like cutting it, into your flesh, and it would be infected and gross and everything. But he understood that if the troops died of smallpox, there was going to be no hope. That this vision, this experiment in liberty and justice for all was going to have any hope of being successful. And we today, we live in a collective society that's predicated on rules and following rules, because otherwise it would be chaos out there. And I have to have a driver's license in order to drive a car. If I drink and get in that car and have an accident, I'll be arrested, put in jail. We have to get vaccines to send our children to school. You need a license to go fishing or hunting or I mean, on and on and on it goes. We pay taxes, but for this particular reason, people feel that it's like it's an infringement of their freedoms or something. I just don't. I don't understand. I don't understand where we went wrong. As I had this dream that we were somehow going to be different at NuPath, that we were going to be like, because this is affecting so many things that interrupting. Even if you think about that ARPA stuff that we talked about last week, the ARPA money that we're going to be getting to give to staff, all of that is predicated on our billing and our ability to provide services. If we can't provide maximum services during this time when the 10% is going to be awarded, that means less money for our employees. It's just, in every set of circumstances, the fact that so many people are still unvaccinated is just, it's really becoming a problem for this organization. We're not able to move forward with our strategic goals.
Yeah. Well, all of what you said is true, but you and I also know that we have to move forward, and we have to try to make decisions and set plans so that we can say that this is what we have to deal with, and we're going to move forward, and we're going to deal with this. And I think along the way, we're making some decisions that may bring a lot of people with us, but it will leave a lot of people behind, or will leave some people behind. And that's the unfortunate part. These are staff that we've worked with for a while, that we care about deeply, but we are going to be forced to make some decisions based on those who are non-vaccinated, and choosing to remain non-vaccinated when we try to move forward and think about the health and safety of the individuals.
Yeah.
And so that's the difficult part. That's the part that is that's not fun.
You mentioned the mandate, and we just have like 4 or 5 minutes left, but the mandate.
I'm watching the clock more.
You are? Are you? Okay,
No,
good. Because this is, well, no, I want to make sure we get to this. So if the long-term care, nursing homes, assisted living, so forth, now that's becoming mandatory. We think, we don't know, but we are pretty sure that it will only be a matter of, could be weeks, could be by next week, that the same goes to providers like NuPath, that they'll say make it mandatory.
Yep.
And even if that doesn't happen, I think where we're heading, you and I were talking about this last night, even if we're the first to do it, and I like what you said earlier about this, decisions needing to be made on behalf of the people we serve, to protect them, to protect those vaccinated staff that are here. We're like all likely have this as a mandatory feature, just as you have to get a TB test, just as you have to have a Corey screening, all of the other prerequisite things to employment. When you take a job anywhere, vaccine is going to become part of it. And as you say, that if that is where we have to then part ways with, I looked at the names of the people on the list, Dan, and I don't know what you think, but I was just so surprised by some of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I don't get disappointed in people, because I know that each one of them has a reason and has a rationale that they believe in of why they're making that decision, and so I respect that. I respect them making that decision. It doesn't mean that can dictate or that can change why we're making other decisions. I can just still allow myself to try to be sympathetic towards that. And I have a few family members that have chosen not to get vaccinated, and we disagree with their rationalization of why they choose to do that. And so I am, it's a definition of insanity, right?
But you can make the decision. It's like the drinking and driving decision. If you want to choose to drink yourself into oblivion and you're in the safety of your own home every night, it may not be good for you. It may end up in liver failure and an early death, whatever. But that's fine. But it's when your behavior intersects and endangers others that's when government steps in and says that's not okay. And that's one way that I guess we're looking at this. If you had a job where you were a carpenter and you just worked by yourself on a farm or whatever, fine, don't get vaccinated. Do whatever you want. But if you're coming in every single day and you're interacting with the vulnerable clients that we serve, that's the major difference. If you're coming across, the public, you're coming across, you're in patient care of any sort. I think that's the direction we're heading as a country.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that way, and it certainly seems like that's the way we have to proceed and prepare us, to prepare ourselves for what's next. I think going back to what we said is none of us, once the vaccination came out and people received the vaccination, and once we started to open back up, none of us thought or wanted to be at this point.
No, sure not.
And that people are working through that in different ways, whether it be the call I had yesterday with the family or just, just staff in general. Everyone's working through that a different way, because this is not what they expected to happen once the vaccination went out.
Yep.
But it is, and now we just need to process it and move forward.
Dan Lannon, thank you so much. As always, we value your opinions and your information, and I sure appreciate having you, keeping me grounded. So thanks very much for.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
We'll talk to you soon.
Good weekend.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. That does it for another episode of NuPath Live. To our vaccinated staff, thank you. We love you. To our unvaccinated staff, we love you too. Go get vaccinated. Enough. We got this, guys. With the vaccine, we got this. Okay, talk to you next week. Bye.